can see also Shem, my cameraman, is here with me, very busy early in the morning, and we're trying also to just get the best shots for you, right? It's also a very big day in terms of enforcing Michuki rules today. We'll be crossing over to Mombasa to just give you the reality on the ground, and also you need to see what is on the front pages of the dailies today. Is all about the Michuki rules, just to pick up the Daily Nation. Then we cross over to Mombasa, where we will give you the feel and flavor of what is happening there. Matatu showdown over Michuki rules. This is the day, so be aware that given to understand also that we have fares which have been hiked. So if you've been paying 30 shillings today, you might be paying 20 or not 20 more shillings on top. For that will be 50. And also people are headed on stages all over the places because there are no matatus today. So if you're not out of the house yet, please be aware that you need to be out of the house very early because of maybe this traffic, of course, being crippled this morning because of this Michuki rules as well. Now we want to cross over to Mombasa to just give you the look and feel on how it is happening on the ground right now. People are stranded, and we can see those pictures just in a moment in Mombasa. Let's just get a feel what people are saying on the ground.
Mivada, the regional police commandant, the regional AP commandant is here with us. Traffic officers, good morning. We began the crackdown of non-compliant vehicles, non-traffic regulation compliant vehicles this morning at 6, slightly some minutes before 6. You can see there's a lot of movement of people walking from Nyali to town. We have so many vehicles which are not compliant to the requirement of the traffic regulations. And this exercise begins today across the region, in the 6 counties, all areas that have a high population of motor vehicles. And we'll continue with this exercise until we are done with this business of people or drivers, owners of motor vehicles, non-complying with what they are required of them. Some of the requirements they are aware, like uniform, governors, speed governors, roadworthiness of that vehicle, belts, modifications, which is not allowed. You've seen most of these vehicles, the behind is high, which is modification, which is wrong. The insurances must be valid, the road licenses, the PSCP licenses, including driver's licenses. So this is what we are cracking on, and this thing will continue. This is a very serious operation, and we are taking it seriously. We are given, the government is serious on this because you know that for some times now we have continued to lose people, losing lives because of carelessness on our roads or people not complying with our with the road regulations, overspeeding, overloading, reckless kind of regulation. This impunity is killing a lot of our people. A lot of our people are killed. Imagine a lady collecting shopping in the evening to take to her children, and then a motorbike or matatu has an accident because of reckless drivers. So this will continue. We want people to be safe on these roads, and it doesn't matter. It's going to happen to everyone: private vehicles, public service vehicles, motorbikes, any means of public transport. All right, any means of transport will be affected. So please, we want to appeal to these people to understand that it's not punitive. We want to bring sanity to our roads. People must be said. We cannot allow impunity to continue in this country forever. We cannot. One time, Lasema to say is enough, and we are going to tell you, you can hide your vehicle, but don't bring it to the road. Those Kilapa should go and do work on their vehicles to make it come back to the roads properly. So nobody is being punished. We understand. We have exams. We have people moving to go and do a decent job, and we want these people to be safe. You look at these people going about building their country. So this is what we want. We want to tell everybody, circles, whatever, you must be in circles. You must have insurance. You should not overload. You should not overspeed. We know them. Some of them are criminals even at night. All right?
Right, where we have, of course, the crackdown ongoing right now, and be aware if you're not out of the house yet, you might be stranded this morning. Also, remember to carry extra cash because people are hiking prices this morning. There are no matatus, and this is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning as well. Matatu showdown over Mishuki rules. Kenyans voted with their feet in 2003 when road safety rules first came into force and PSV operators pulled their vehicles off the roads. Today, 15 years later, the fight for safety faces the same obstacles. And I have this story well fleshed out for you on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also still on the front page of the Daily Nation, you need to also read about KRA goes for rich club. The taxman has put on the radar more than 50 high net worth Kenyans and is demanding from them more than 10 billion shillings in tax arrears. At the same time, Kenya Revenue Authority officials are raising the alarm over the continued use of courts by billionaires and super elite to contest tax demands rather than the Tax Appeals Tribunal, which is mandated by law to hear such cases. The story continues on page 3 of the Daily Nation today. President Kenyatta last month asked KRA to track individuals whose lifestyles are not reflective of the taxes they pay. We have Professor Tomojenda denies tax arrears claim. Also, we have here Njenga Karume, estate accused of tax evasion. That is the late Njenga Karume. And also we do have Hassan Zubeidi, former Dubai bank executive as well. We have also Wilfred Murungi, runs Mastermind Tobacco. Also, this is some of the tax evaders as well. You can follow their story on page 3 of the Daily Nation today. See a related picture? This is all about matatu. Earlier on, we're just giving you how the situation is in Mombasa right now. The crackdown is on and people are stranded. In a moment also we'll be crossing over there to just get a feel from wananchi who are bearing the brunt of this morning. And this is what is headlining the most of the pages today on our dailies, the front pages as well. Why Matatu Matiang'i crackdown will be brutal. This is what was there on Saturday. A high-powered team comprising police, DPP, prosecutors, NTSA, Interior and Transport Ministry issues list of 14 offences and vow ruthless crackdown. You have this story on page 4 and 5. I'll give you a snippet of this also much later in the course of the program. But that is the Saturday's standard. Let's see what also the Star is holding for us. Ruto allies revive debate on ICC case is another story. ODM leaders say Ruto seeking to use ICC propaganda to whip up sympathy. 20 MPs say DP's opponents are behind reports that ICC is probing him. You have this story on page 2 of the Star today. Also, Moi's son, big loser in 100,000 acres NSSF land saga, is another sad but story on the front page of the Star this morning. You can grab also that story continuing on the page 4 and 5 of the Star. And we can see here Chinga MCA Kiruga Dhuku and Deputy President William Ruto with South Mugirango MP Silvanas Osoro during the race in Nyeri County yesterday. That is what is on the front page of the Star this morning. Also, matatu operators declare strike as new rules take effect, and already that is happening. Transport reforms, this story continues on page 6 of the Star. And DPP, once Senator Ledama probed over tribal clashes. That is a story that you want to follow on page 8 of the Star this morning. Also, Boni elders want FGM allowed to restore morals. It's all about female circumcision, and you can follow the story on page 25 of the Star this morning. A quick look now on what we have on the front page of the People Daily. And this is what is on the front page of the People Daily this morning. MPs warn on ICC plot against Ruto. It says 2 governors, 15 MPs. Time reports that The Hague plans to revive case against the DP as emanating from his political enemies, but insists scheme won't prevent him from succeeding Uhuru in 2022. This story continues on page 22, not 22, but page 6 of the People Daily this morning. And we can see here, having a light moment, is Deputy President William Ruto chatting with one of the athletes who took part in the inaugural 21 kilometers Dr. Wahome Gakuru Memorial Half Marathon in Nyeri yesterday. All out on the front page of the People Daily. Let's see what we have on top there. No reverse gear on new traffic rules. Looming crisis Anticipated crackdown on PSVs in breach of traffic regulations likely to cause commuting chaos as operators withdraw service. This story also continues on page 2 of the People Daily. Also, China trained medics to ease hospital pressure. 30 medical personnel equipped in handling imaging machines to be deployed to county facilities. That story continues on page 8 of the People Daily this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Business Daily is up next. Alarm as 4 public firms fail to publish results. Companies failed to meet October 31st deadline set by the Capital Markets Authority for Nairobi Security Exchange. Listed companies have missed the deadline for publications of their financial results, revealing the extent of the battle to survive under the weight of debts, heavy losses and management crises. Bombay Sugar, Kenya Power, East African Portland Cement Company and Uchumi Supermarkets failed to meet the October 31st deadline set by the Capital Markets Authority, meaning investors in the firms will have to wait longer to know whether the management generated any returns during the financial year ended June 2018. And that story also, you can follow it on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Still on the front page, Mudhama's mining farm licenses round may be settled out of court. Former Machakos Senator Johnson Mudhama has opened talks with the government for an out-of-court settlement of the disputed cancellation of his mining firm's export license. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. And the Kenya double, we can see here, Brimin Kipkorir Misoi celebrating as he crosses the finish line to win the 36th Athens Classic Marathon in Greece yesterday. Also, compatriot Shelmith Nyawira Muriuki won the women's race, this courtesy of AFP, and we can see them celebrating here on the front page of the Business Daily. Also, Burundi, Kenya fight over aircraft deployment. A diplomatic row has erupted between Burundi and Kenya after Bujumbura demanded that Kenya Airways low-cost partner Jambojet deploy a big aircraft with business class seats for flights to the Central African nation. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Let's take a look at the ticker, or on the ticker, what we do have on the front page of the Business Daily. The sad but their hefty fines looms for housing fund deduction delays. Employers risk paying hefty penalties for late remittance of monthly staff salary deductions and their contributions towards the Jubilee government's cheap housing fund. You can follow the rest of the details on page 8 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, 18.3%, that is a digit that housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels carry in the weighting basket for goods used to measure inflation. Also, poor funding puts Mathare Hospital on sick bed. Medics at Mathare Hospital are overworked, underpaid and ill-equipped. The situation is worsening with every financial year as funding per patient continues to fall below optimal level. That story also tucked away on page 12 and 13 of the Business Daily. PE fund to inject 6 billion shillings into firms. East African focused private equity firm Catalyst Principal Partners plans to sink up to 6.23 billion shillings in Kenya's mid-sized and emerging firms in coming months following a successful fundraising which ended in July 19th. The rest, you can pick up, of course, the copy of the Business Daily. We'll cross over now to Tanzania, where we have the Citizen for you. New bill seeks to tighten the noose on loan sharks. That is what is on the front page of the Citizen. The bill seeks to bar unlicensed individuals from conducting microfinance business and proposes a fine of up to 50 million shillings or imprisonment of not less than 3 months and not exceeding 5 years or both. That story on page 2 of the Citizen. And this is a figure there. The proposed fine for banks and credit companies which lend money without being licensed by the Bank of Tanzania, which is the industry regulator. That is 100 million shillings. That is Tanzanian shillings. You can follow that story inside the Citizen today. Also in Tier 3, savings and credit societies, while Tier 4 comprises community financial groups, community-based organizations, and individual money lenders. Let's see what we have also on the front page of the Citizen. Police link Dar House with more Deji abduction. Police say the billionaire businessman was held captive for several days in a house in the city's Mbezi Beach area. And you can see that particular, of course, picture on the front page of the Citizen. And half of ministers gone. Who's next? Who is next? That is a big question after nearly half of ministers and their deputies appointed in 2015 were sacked in the past 3 years. Only 11 ministers and 10 deputies appointed on December 10th, 2015 are still in the cabinet from among the original 19 ministers and 15 deputies. You can follow the rest of the story on page 2. Also, Chinese investors eye mega projects in Bagamoyo, that on page 2 of Mwananchi in Tanzania. Still there we have not Mwananchi but the Citizen. Now we have the Mwananchi. Hakuna aliye salama. That is a story. Mawaziri 9 wameshindwa safari ya Rais Magufuli ndani ya miaka mitatu. Katika baraza la kwanza la mawaziri wamebaki 11. Je, watamaliza miaka mitano? That is a question, and you can follow that story on page 2, actually page 4 of Mwananchi. In Uganda, Daily Monitor is up next. Museveni opposition to meet next month. The December meeting will be attended by at least 250 people, with each of the 5 political parties bringing 50 delegates from their rank and file. That story on page 5 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Also, Maria Obote in intensive care. Her son, who is also the Lira Municipality Member of Parliament, Mr. Jimmy Akena, broke the news that their mother has been hospitalized with a chest infection. That is a story on page 2. Maria Obote, that is the wife of Milton Obote, and you can follow that story on page 2 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Association of the Religious mark of 50 years. You can see the Jubilee celebrations here, and all the clergy are all gathered here. You can follow that story on page 2 of the Daily Monitor. We want to see also what the East African is holding for us, but I'll be remiss if I don't show you what the Taifa Leo is holding for us as well. And this is what is on the front page of Taifa Leo today. Matatu, hakuna mjadala. That is the story. Waziri wa usalama asema muda umeisha na msako unaanza leo ilivyopangwa. Momentarily we'll cross over back to Mombasa, where also that crackdown is happening. And of course, we'll get some of the reactions there. But I'm given to understand, of course, we have reactions from Mwananchi not in Tanzania, but in Mombasa. Let's cross over there and get a listen of what they're saying this morning.
Lakini hili jambo enyewe sisi kama binadamu sisi ndio tunaumia. Maana watu wakati wanasema magari itengeneze mara ifanywe nini, sisi ndio tumeumia. Maana kutoka Changamwe hadi hapa Kongoya na bado mizigo zenyewe hata hatujachukua. Sasa watoto wetu watakula nini? Na sisi wenyewe tumekuja kujitafutia. Kwa hivyo serikali iwajibike. Haistahili, maana sisi binadamu ndio tunaumia. Sisi wananchi wa kawaida. Maana magari ya serikali utaona yanapita, yanatembea, yako sawa, lakini sisi wenyewe ndio tunaumia. Kwa hivyo serikali iwajibike, na Bwana Matiang'i angalie haki za binadamu, maana sisi ndio tunayeteseka.
Mimi naitwa Uma Frederick Ochieng. Nimetoka kutoka Bombolulu mpaka hapa. Na hii shida imetokea ni leo tu. Hatukuwa tunajua. Sasa serikali tunaomba waseme tu ile shida wanataka kutatua, watatue vile wao wanatatua hizi zingine, kwa sababu hizi zingine wao inatatuliwa na magari zinatembea tu. Sasa leo magari zimesimamishwa. Waseme tu wanataka kufanya nini ili biashara iendelee, watu watembee, pia tuko mtihani. Ni haya tu.
Kwa majina naitwa Frederick Otieno. Nimetoka mbali kuja sokoni Kongoya, lakini sasa kulingana na vile nabeba mzigo na siwezi tembea, hii lazima nikitembea lazima nibebe mzigo yangu, ambapo naelekea mahali naelekea mbali, nikibeba mzigo pia nasikia uzito. Kuna mzigo mwingine unaweza beba, kuna mwingine ana mzigo kubwa, mwingine mzigo ndogo. Hata kulingana na vile magari, kuna magari pia imepandisha bei, ambapo kuna magari pia imeshikwa. Ndio mjadala ya serikali vile wamekuja nayo si mbaya, at least inaweza saidia, inaweza okoa vile haki ya binadamu pia inaweza angaliwa, lakini tuangalie maslahi pia ya wananchi. Siko hayo tu.
Kwa majina naitwa Omari Kudura. Mimi natoka Ujamaa na naelekea Nyali. Nimetembea usiku tukosa 11 mpaka sasa hivi. Napata shida. Hii serikali tumechagua Jubilee ni serikali ya maendeleo. Naomba Bwana Rais Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta atuhurumie, atuangalie. Maana tunatoka Ukunda tunaenda Likoni kikazi, na tena turudi huko na miguu, itakuwa vipi? Naomba Bwana Matiang'i atuangalie sana, maana tunaumia sisi. Asanteni.
Kwa majina naitwa Dennis, wanafanya biashara za viatu. Sasa nilikuwa nimekuja kuchukua mzigo hapa Kongoya, lakini sasa imebidi niache. Na hakuna means venye nitaweza kubeba mzigo. Nikapeleka kule feri. Sasa naomba serikali iingilie kidogo. Mwananchi wa kawaida ndio tunaumia sana. Unaonaje hii crackdown unaionaje? Si sawa, si haki.
Haya, mwingine. Okay, kwa majina mimi naitwa Duncan. Crackdown si mbaya, lakini imekazwa vibaya sana. Maana sasa hii imeletwa wakati kuna wanafunzi wanafanya mtihani. Kuna wengine ambao wanaishi upande wa Likoni na wanasoma Bamburi. Sasa kama wamefanya kitu kama hii, hao wanafunzi wanafaa wapande magari. Wataenda vipi hiyo mtihani ambayo inatakana wafanye? Na je, pia hii ni maslahi yetu pia waangalie, maana tunapanda magari, hatufanyi kazi mahali tunakaa. Wengine wanakaa Likoni wanafanya kazi hata Malindi. Hizo magari tutapanda vipi? Na ukienda kule mkubwa hata taka kujua. Kwa hivyo kweli crackdown si mbaya, lakini pia waangalie maslahi yetu wa binadamu pia. Si sote hatuna magari, tunatumia matatu. Tunatumia public service vehicle. Hii kitu imefanyika, hatuoni kama ni nzuri vile. Wahurumie wanafunzi ambao wanafanya mtihani pia. So wasiangalie wenye magari na magari peke yake. Kuna wanafunzi wanafanya mtihani. Sasa je, hawatafanya mtihani kwa sababu crackdown? Hiyo pia waangalie. Anza na majina.
Kwa majina naitwa John Musedhi Yaka. Ningeomba hii serikali tuambie ni kitu gani wanatuhitaji, kwa sababu unaona hakuna matatu inayopita hapa, uambui shida ni nini, unaambia uweke kando. Kwa hivyo ningeomba serikali iangalie vizuri tupate kujua ni kitu gani na gani tutatakikana katika tujipange, kwa sababu hatuelewi. Kuna gari ambazo zibebi abiria na zimewekwa kando, na zile zinabeba abiria wenye vibali fuli na bado wanawekwa kando, na hawajatuambia ni kitu gani wanataka. Kwa hivyo serikali iangalie hiyo mambo. Asante.
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Ahmadi Ali. Asema bwana Matiang'i amefanya kitu kingine sio kizuri bwana. Sisi tuenda kazini, tuenda na mguu. Hakuna magari, hakuna lolote. Afanya kitu ghafla bwana. Yeye enda na magari, sisi tuenda na mguu bwana. Ndio hayo.
Leta. Kwa majina naitwa Sam. So kile kitu nilikuwa nataka kusema ni kwamba wajaribu yani kutuongeza hizo siku, kwa sababu hata ukienda dukani upati spare. So kama yangu sasa inadai mishipi na nimeenda nimetafuta mishipi hakuna. So watuhurumie pia, watuangalie sisi pia. Kwa sababu ni spare hakuna. Tunataka kutengeza magari lakini hakuna spare. Ni hiyo.
Ingia. Hakuna mwingine. Nani mwingine?
Reactions there from Mombasa, of course, on the crackdown on matatu violators who are not really complying with the Michuki rules this morning. The police are enforcing those rules. And of course, this is what is also headlining most of the dailies today. Also, take a look at the editorial cartoon that we do have. This is in the Star today. Bring it on. And of course, we have the bull there with the red flag being shown by Matiang'i there. Bring it on. And this is what is happening on the ground right now. So if you're not aware about this, of course, and you're not out of the house yet, you may be stranded this morning, so you need to carry also some extra cash today, because also I'm given to understand some of the matatus that are on the road are hiking prices as well. This is what Victor has drawn for you in the Star as well. Of course, the graffiti on matatus. This is some of the things that they want streamlined as far as the matatu sector is concerned as well. I want to show you briefly what we have also on the front page of the East Africa this week. We are still continuing with our daily reviews. And this is the East African, a lesson in profitable sugar production, learning from the best. Farm adopts irrigation mechanization to maximize yields. And this is a testing success. Kwale International Sugar Company Limited started operations 3 years ago, copying the successes of the countries exporting sugar to the region. Last year, the farm harvested 290,000 tons of cane and produced 28,000 tons of sugar, contributing 14% of Kenya's production. That is what we have on the front page of the East African this week. Also, DRC opposition seeks single candidate. Plan, however, not backed by a candidate who opinion polls show is popular. Opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of Congo are working on a formula to back a single candidate to face off with the government in the December 23rd elections. Their leaders started discussions in Switzerland on November 7th to forge a united front. We'll give you also details of this much later in the course of the program as well. And finally, let me just show you what we have on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. This is the latest edition, of course, the weekend edition. Time notwithstanding, Trump played central role in pairs despite denials. And we can see wildfires wreaking havoc in communities across California. We can see wildfires raging on both ends of California, with at least 9 people killed in the north and thousands of people forced out of their homes in Thousand Oaks. Authorities ordered evacuations in an area still reeling from a mass shooting earlier in the week. Also, Florida barrels towards recount. A legal fight deepened over the outcome of Florida's U.S. Senate's race as local election officials rush to meet a Saturday deadline to report voting tallies that are expected to trigger a recount. You can follow that story also in the latest edition of the Wall Street Journal. This is a weekend edition, of course, as I've mentioned, time notwithstanding, so we have this as the latest. This is the 10th, 11th edition. Also, Goldman's ex-CEO meet IMDb financier is another story that you want to follow. The US Today has this for you. Raging wildfires in California, largely uncontained resident. It was a hairy experience, they say. And you can see related pictures as well, how really fire raced down some of the communities there. You can see a burned out truck and a building lie on the Saddle Rock Ranch property in Malibu, California. This was on Saturday. Also, bar attack has some gun force packing non-traditional buyers crowd California store. And also, still on the front page of the USA Today, Medical of Freedom list heavy on ex-sports stars Elvis Presley, Babe Ruth and Justice Antonin Scalia among the list of 7 people named by President Donald Trump to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. You can follow that story also inside the US Today. Right, we want to cross over to our panelists who are already in studio with us to just also weigh in on what they think about the Michukiri rules right now. Yes, they've begun in earnest, but will that taper off with time, or will still have the same vigor being maintained and sustained by the authorities? Allow me to introduce this morning to you our panelists who are with us. We have with us Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is the governor of Kisumu. Welcome back, sir. It's good to have you after a long time. Also, we do have Kembe Gitura, who is a former senator of Murang'a and also the former deputy Speaker of the Senate. We do have with us Okongo Omogeni, the senator of Nyamira, and we do have as well Senator Samuel Pogisu, who is the senator of West Pokot. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Right, let's just begin with what is happening with Michuki rules so far. I think people are saying, why are we saying that they're being reinforced? Because at what point did we lose out on Michuki rules as well? Let's just begin with you, Samuel Pogisu.
Thank you, Debarl. I think we all know that when Michuki started these things as minister, he had managed to get us into some kind of order. And although the matatu owners and all the business people at matatu had protested even that time, yes. You remember people walking to work. It's coming back. It's like to haunt us. The same thing we should have then pursued that at that time. And order would have been restored. Trying to restore order now is going to be, of course, tougher than then, because we've allowed these things to go a bit too far. The people in the matatu industry now have hiked fares. They're trying to hold us, wananchi, of course, at ransom. So very soon, we just have to be prepared. I hope that the people, Inspector General Police, Matiang'i, and even the Transport Minister, I hope they are ready with the human resource and the financial resource to manage the crisis ahead, because it's going to be a crisis.
It's going to be a crisis. Already we're experiencing the crisis. We can see some of the commuters there really protesting as well. But let's hear from Governor Anyang' Nyong'o. Good morning.
Morning, Inea. Thank you very much. I think we must be a rule-based society in all areas. It's not just in the transport sector, but in all areas. One of the problems is that we broke down to develop a society where rules don't matter. Or you can bypass rules and still get away with it.
Yes.
I think that is not how modern society runs. That's why we have constitutions. That's why we have separation of powers in government, so that we have a branch that makes the laws, one that executes it, and one that adjudicates when things go wrong. So now the government has done what it should have done, as Senator Pugisha says, of making sure that these Michuki rules, which were developed and accepted, are used all the time in the transport sector. But the other thing we must realize is that there are vested interests in the transportation sector in various ways, which benefit from not following rules and regulations. For example, the matatu sector largely thrives on chaos, and I think this is no good. If you go into a city or a town and you want to park your matatu anywhere and anyhowly, it inconveniences other travelers, not just those in motor vehicles, but also even people who walk and people who cycle. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that it is important that Matiang'i make sure that we have a rule-based society, particularly in the transportation sector. Otherwise, as population grows, we shall have to create certain facilities which are not really necessary, which cost us money which are not necessary, just because people are not obeying rules. Yeah.
Right. Let's hear from Congo Mongini. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl. Yeah, I think on this one we all support Matiang'i. I think the matatu industry is fairly chaotic in this country, and I think Debarl, if you want to pick best practices from other international jurisdictions, matatus are not run the way we do it in Kenya. And I think ever since we collapsed Kenya bus service,
yes,
there has never been order in this city in terms of how our matatus operate. So really, we must support the government on this. But my only problem is that this kind of knee-jerk reactions, you implement the rules 2 months, 1 month, and then down the line, we operate like we are not a country which should have a rule of law.
Yes.
I mean, if rules are there, they should be there for posterity. Yeah. It should not be dependent on which minister is occupying certain position at what time. It should be there for posterity. But also, there is also a bigger problem in this matatu industry. That's where corruption thrives. And why these guys are able to stay on the road is because every day, I can assure you, Debarl, there is money exchanging hands between the matatus and the police officers on the road who are supposed to enforce those rules. And unless Matiang'i cracks the whip on that issue of corruption, we'll never see an end to this, because it will be done for 2 weeks, then it will be back to business as usual. Money will continue exchanging hands between the police officers who are supposed to enforce the rules and the matatu crew, and we'll go back to the old order. The old order. And then, number two, I am happy that governor is here. I need to see, something more from our county governments. Because you see battles between county government like Nairobi, between Sonko and matatus. One day you will see a policy where a directive will be given that matatus should not encroach to certain areas of the CBD, then a strike, then you see them back again. But if we can make this a long-term initiative, engage the people in the matatu industry, agree on the routes they should operate, agree on which matatus should access the CBD, and then we have order. That way you have a society that is functional. In some countries out there, people don't think of any other mode of transport other than matatus. It's orderly. We are operating like we are still in the era of illiteracy, where matatu touts must shout and tell you this is the matatu that go to. That should not happen, because people should actually walk to a bus stop. You should know matatus going to Kiambu. They should be on a queue. Yes. As soon as the first one is full, the next one should come in. Why this noise pollution everywhere in our city? We really create a situation which is fairly embarrassing to us as a country. So I hope this can be something that can be an initiative by both the national government, county government, and the police. But for order, we did it, Debarl.
And if it hadn't taken the spate of accidents that we had recently, and of course losing a lot of lives as well, we don't think this particular Mishuki rules will have been, brought back to bear as it is today this morning. Kemi Gitura, Balozi.
Oh, thank you, Debarl. I was watching a very interesting documentary on one of the television stations last night.
Yes.
On this matatu, issue, and I understand that so far we have lost about 2,500 lives in road accidents, or not all of them through matatus, but most of them matatus and buses, and that number is unacceptable in any society. But I think the bigger problem is cultural. 2003, when John Michuki, the then Minister for Transport, brought in these rules, the so-called Michuki rules, we were there, we were in Parliament. Professor Nyang and myself and Pogisho were in Parliament that time. And I remember that there was a lot of resistance to the Michuki rules. Safety belts, 14-seaters, and speed governors. There was lots of resistance. But the same people, the same Kinyanjui here, the same, the other gentleman is called Kimutai, Simon Kimutai. They were the same characters. And I remember in 2003, I was in a funeral in Muranga with John Michuki and on a Friday. And he told them, listen guys, you say you're not going to obey the rules from Monday.
Yes.
What is going to happen to you is that you're going to have to ground your matatus, because if you don't obey the rules, you'll not be allowed on the roads. And I remember Kimutai replying to Michuki on the Saturday and saying, listen, we are not going to be there on Monday. These are our matatus. We are not going to do what you're asking us to do because it's unreasonable. On Monday, the president issued a statement and said, you must obey the law. And Kimutai turned around on Tuesday and said, okay, we are going to have these things done. And they were done. And there was a lot of orderliness on the roads. I say it's cultural because 2003 is 15 years ago. A matatu tout today, who is 20 years old, was only 5 years old. A driver who is 30 years old today was only 15 years old. So they may very well not know about Michuki rules, because they died as soon as John Michuki was moved from Ministry of Transport to Ministry of Environment. And this is important. What we are seeing now, and I pray to God, I hope it is not knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
Not because one bus killed 46 people.
Yes.
That's not the reason that we are now having a change of, going back to these things, because had this thing continued,
yes,
had it continued when John Michuki promulgated these rules, then we'll be seeing a lot of difference. There will be a cultural change, and people would be obeying the rules, and the people who are 5 years old would come to believe that speed governors and safety belts were always part and parcel of matatus in this country. But if you keep changing these rules, then people will believe that this was for nothing. Let me remind you that in 2003, because we were still around 15 years ago, people walked long distances to places of work. And they said, we are going to stand with the government. We are not going to board any matatu until they obey the law. And people walked for more than a month. Matatus came down, they obeyed, and people went back to the road. Now, the reason people may not walk today is because they are not sure whether or not there will be a follow-through
or not.
Or not.
Yes.
Because people are tired, of situations where today we start off well. I don't know whether you remember Debarl. I don't know where you were in 2003 again, when after President Kibaki came into office, people were arresting police officers, found bribing. There was a very big breath of fresh air. And I remember an incident very clearly near Blue Post in Thika, where a policeman was arrested by the people because he was taking a 50 shillings bribe. And that was what people would have wanted to see going forward. But when it became business as usual, people lose faith, and people think it's just talk, nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
I would advise, if I was in Matiang'i's position myself, or C.S. Macharia's position, or the IG's position, I would not talk about these things. People would see them being done, because that is what should happen. People would see the law being enforced without people standing on platforms and saying these things, because the assumption is that a law is made so that it becomes enforceable, and so that people follow that law. Not so that people follow law from time to time at the convenience, or because a certain event has happened. That would be my view.
All right. Thank you very much. And of course, that I think will settle it, unless you have anything to add on this. Professor Anganyang.
No, the Deputy Speaker reminds me of Michuki, and I remember at that time, I remember an interview in Michuki's office with these matatu owners, and it was on TV. And they went on saying, you know, Mr. Minister, these seat belts, you should have warned us earlier. We didn't have time to buy them. We think we should be given more time. You know, Mr. Minister, all that. They went on a long list of pleas to John. But John looked at them and said one thing. Well, gentlemen, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, all matatus will have seat belts and speed governors. Thank you very much and good night.
Veritas.
Veritas. And I was in my office. I called John. You know, I said, John, I watched that thing. It was very good. I said, yeah, Peter, we mean business. We must do what we say. And I think one good thing with John, we must remember him very, very fondly, is that he was a matter-of-fact person. I mean, and I hope Matangi will follow John's example. And as Kimbi Gutura says, it's very important that these things don't depend on personalities, but they depend on established law and procedures, which should outlive us, ourselves, and to future generations. It's very bad that we used to have buses in this city, which arrived in time. You went to a bus station, and you saw bus number 6 is arriving at this hour, and they would arrive. They would arrive and take you, and you go. It was here in Nairobi. And I remember as a Minister of Planning, I visited Malaysia, and I was talking to the then Prime Minister who followed Mahathir Mohamad then. And he told me as a young man, he came to Nairobi in 1974, heading a youth delegation on behalf of the ruling party. And he was very impressed by the orderliness of buses in Nairobi. So when he went back to Malaysia, he told his government, and they said, we are going to establish exactly what happened in Nairobi. So they did. In 1985, 10 years later, when he came back for the Women's Conference, remember, the UN Women's Conference, in 85, he didn't see these buses anymore. And he was wondering what happened to Kenya. For them, they went and established this thing. They were even started making their own buses, by the way. So I think this idea of going forward and going back 2 steps has really hurt our history. And I hope it's time we decide to move forward and move forward forever.
All right.
And Debarl, really, I'm just looking at a story on page 12 and 13 of the Star.
That is page?
That's page 13.
Today's the weekend.
Today is today's, not the weekend.
Today's.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also we need to be sensitive to the people in the matatu industry. I don't run matatus myself, but
God forbid.
But look at extortion gangs, gangs that undermine laws. You know, if you read there, it's like the matatu owners, the 4th paragraph there, they pay between 50 to 100,000 shillings to get permission to put their buses on some terminal points in this city. You know, can you imagine that? You know, so I think also to be really fair, because these are investors, these are people who want to run. You can see down there, PSV crew pay 50 to 100,000. It's there, right there. Just imagine. Just to
30 to 100,000. Yes.
Yes, to have your matatu allowed in some
areas,
some terminals areas, you're going to pay between 50 to 100. You're not paying to a government. You're not paying this to the local county government so that they generate revenue. You're paying it into somebody's pocket.
Yes.
50 to 100. I think Matiang'i here needs to crack the whip because we are making this industry to be very unprofitable. That's why we are not seeing big investors joining the industry. And I'm imagining if you have 4 matatus, you are going to enrich somebody's pocket, so 400,000. And I think this is something I want to request my good friend Anyang' Nyong. I think the county government needs to work with Matiang'i to get rid of these criminal gangs, these extortionists, you know, so that the matatu, people in the matatu industry can also be appreciated. Instead of paying these gangs, this is money. I would be happy if this was tax going either to the county government or to the national government.
Thank you.
So I really hope that Matiang'i will also implement his threats and get rid of these gangs from all these terminal
Right.
stations.
Let's hear from Pogiso, then we'll come to you, Senator. Pogiso.
Yeah, on the same. The problem, in my view, is that we might deal with matatus and even maybe succeed in dealing with matatus. But the secondary problem now is that we've been trying to, the government has been trying to get rid of these extortionists on the roads. So you'll see one day police officer is arrested and then it disappears forever, nobody's done, follows up on that. The other thing which they may have to deal with now is the borders, because that's another world altogether. That's another world altogether. I think, Debarl, if we can get interested parties, people who are supposed to protect us, not to own matatus or run matatus themselves, it'll be better, because now, if they're owned by police officers, for example, then who will stop them from doing the things that they do? So if we can get people who are supposed to help with stopping this, to declare their interest in the matatu industry, so that we know whom to deploy and those not to deploy. I think that's where the compromise is.
Let's finalize this with Keme Gitura as well.
In my view, and I listen and appreciate very much what my colleagues have said, this is multi-departmental.
Yes.
Matiang'i is not Minister for Transport, is he? Is it supposed to be his internal security?
Yes.
And that's why he is there. IG Bonnet is there because the police enforce security and because of traffic officers also. CS Macharia is there because he's in charge of transport.
Yes.
So it must be done by all these people. And this, I told you I was listening to this documentary last night, and it was saying that in one matatu stop, I think in Kawangware or there, these gangs collect between 1 and 1.5 million shillings every month. Now this is money that's not accounted for. Is extortion, because they tell a matatu, if you are going to enter into this bus stop or this matatu stage, you must pay between 5 and you must pay 20 shillings. It's only 20 shillings, and therefore you think 20 shillings is not much money. But cumulatively, if you have 500 matatus and one is making about 10 trips a day to that stop and pays 20 shillings, and there are more than 500 matatus in a month, you are calculating that it comes to between 1 million and 1.5 million shillings. Now, John Michuki was able to deal with these gangs. And it's because he was not doing it alone. And that's the reason I said the issue is not one talking about it from day to evening. It's about doing it. You must do what must be done. Don't tell us, because the reason you are Minister for Transport, the reason you are Minister for Internal Security is to do what you're supposed to do. So I think the issue is one of that we don't need to hear too much from them.
Yes.
We need to see that action is being taken, and that these gangs are not on the roads. But people get tired when they listen to the same thing through and through. So my suggestion is that we need to see order on the roads, and we need to see these cabinet secretaries working together, and we need to see that the citizen is able to ride in a matatu, reading a newspaper because there is no congestion, and not worried because it's driving at 80 kilometers per hour on a maximum.
Yes.
And also sure that they'll be able to get, reasonably certain that they'll be able to get to their destination. I would say that these are the things that we need to look into, and that starting today, it must be made clear that the rules and the law must be obeyed, because if it is not obeyed, if then we go back after another few months, then people will lose faith completely, and they'll have no reason to believe that anything is going to be done that is to their benefit. That is a tragedy. That has continued to be the tragedy that we see from day to day. Why is it difficult, for instance, in my view? And I'm happy that Senator Mogeni has challenged my friend, Governor Nyang'nyong.
Yes.
Because Governor Nyang'nyong is in charge of Kisumu County. And he is in charge of all the matatu stops and bus stops in Kisumu.
Yes.
And there is, and if the Council of Governors agrees to work with the security system, with the transport system of this country, I don't see why we will not have order in Kisumu, have order in Murang'a, have order in Kisii, have order everywhere else, because the county governments have an interest in it. We must, all of us, take an interest in it, because when people suffer in Kisumu, it is the citizens, is the people that look up to Governor Nyang'nyong that will not get comfort going to work and other things. But let me tell you, When we start hearing excuses like I had this morning, that if you started today, then the people who are sitting for KCSE will not make it to their exams. I mean, this is blackmail. It's going to continue, and tomorrow there will be something else. Next week there will be something else, and then it could go on forever. That is why John Michuki said, tomorrow morning, you are going to have safety belts, and you are going to have speed governors, or you are going to ground your matatus. That should be the edict, and that should be it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that does it for what is happening on the ground right now with the Michuki rules, which the police officers are enforcing this morning, and there's a crackdown. If you're not aware, just be aware right now that yes, maybe you might need to spend a little bit more, because also they're hiking fares this morning as well. But I want to draw our attention this morning before we take a short break, and Anyang Nyong'o, this I think really falls smack dab in the middle of your domain as well. This is what was on the front page, not really on page 4 of the Sunday Standard, right? A special report there. Why counties now spend 15 billion shillings more for unused machines? And it says that the health ministry is once again on the spot of a substantial variation in the controversial medical equipment leasing scheme that will cost the taxpayer an extra 15 billion shillings. Initially, the ministry had entered into a deal with 5 global companies for the supply of medical equipment for 2 hospitals in each of the 47 counties at 38 billion shillings. Now in 2015, in the 2015 deal that attracted the wrath of governors, the ministry would deduct 90 million shillings annually from each of the 47 counties after it signed a 7-year leasing agreement with the US, China, the Netherlands, India and Italian firms on behalf of the devolved units. But somewhere along the way, the ministry varied the deal that has seen each county now paying 200 million shillings annually from July this year. Now, if you don't have maybe a brief history of this, we can also tell you this, how controversy dogged the health ministry equipment deal that is on the next page as well, of how controversy dogged the health equipment. The multi-billion shillings medical equipment leasing deal has been shrouded in controversy since it was launched with opposition from stakeholders. Unveiled in February 2015 by President Uhuru Kenyatta, the intention was to have Kenyans access affordable, specialized healthcare in the counties. Such services were previously a pre-serve of Kenyatta National Hospital and Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret. Immediately after the launch, several governors led by the former Council of Governors, Chairman Isaac Ruto, refused to sign the MOU for the leasing of the theatre facilities, dialysis kits, intensive care unit, equipment and x-ray machines, which cost 38 billion shillings. So maybe we can ask you, Governor, from 90 million shillings to 200 million shillings, are you paying this annually?
Yes, and
you're paying this annually.
We really, in the Council of Governors, have questioned this thing. But see, this thing was handed over to the counties a fait accompli by the national government. Senator, will remember in the Senate, we even asked the Health Cabinet Secretary to come to the Senate and explain to us how the thing came about. After his explanation, we were not satisfied, but it was already a fait accompli.
Yes.
The things were already there. And I think the national government was really unfair to the county government, because this push thing that you establish the needs of the counties during the era of devolution without the demand from the counties was wrong ab initio. It was wrong. It was a really wrong premise on which to buy these things. But what it was is that after the...
But why did you raise any, of course, a special umbrage with this 200...
The Council of Governors raised it, and the Senate raised it. We had the CS come to the Senate and talk to us, and even after he talked, we were not satisfied. But as I tell you, it was a fait accompli that had already been done. And the equipment was already here. It was being pushed to the counties. I mean, the situation was, which was both embarrassing and frustrating. And now at the moment, how the thing has jumped from 90 million to 200 million is as baffling as the peace of God which passeth all understanding. You see, and I get very frustrated because there are other priorities we have. What kind of equipment do we need? What kind of hospitals we have? I mean, this idea that you deal with diseases by buying equipment, no. I mean, equipment should follow an analysis of the resources that you have and the stage at which you are in terms of building the capacity in the counties to deal with these things. I'm not saying that having a PT scan is wrong, no. But it should come with a price you can afford, and at a time when you have the personnel and the plant to accept the thing. In many cases, these equipment went to the counties, and they were in crates for months before they were used, because there was not even a place to fix it.
Even some of them are not really unpacked until today.
Now, yes, you see. So
because you don't even have specialists
exactly,
and
specialists and so on. So that's one thing. This push policy was wrong at the ab initio, and I really think it is a very unfair bail on the counties. But as I say, the government just decided before the 2013 that they were going to buy these things, and the genesis of these things is really baffling.
All right, let's hear from Senator Kongo Mogeni before we take a short break, then we continue with the discussion, or Senator Pogiso for that matter. Let's hear from Senator Pogiso. We come to
I think that what the governor is saying is, of course, I wasn't in the Senate then, but we could follow then what was happening. And you find a very small county like West Pokot County, which is not really a big county. With all those equipment, some of them still in crates up to now, not being able to be installed. In fact, some of those places, even the rooms where they should be installed are still being constructed. In some places, theaters are still being constructed up to now. And so, if those equipment were valid and up to date.
So this is since 2015.
Yeah. So
they're still under construction.
Exactly. And I'm saying basically, if, for example, the machines were state of the art then. They cannot be state-of-the-art machines now. And so you'll need to either upgrade them or now begin to look for the next models of them. And I think that's why I think the query should have gone to themselves to say, well, what are the machines doing in crates? Some of those machines which have not been able to be deployed. But having said that, I think it was also that time the beginnings of devolution, and I think that was easy that time. I don't think they can do the same thing now with the current governors, because then I think even now they might be having if they were to be started now, there'll be a lot more questions. I hope so, and the people who are there now. But it was then easier because I think also about the tyranny of numbers was a problem even during that time. And so if in the houses, if tyranny of numbers had anything to do with it, nothing could be challenged, because it's a political decision. And I think that sometimes it's a big problem when everybody just says aye and everything goes through, and then the cost up to now cannot be you can't account for it. You cannot justify why counties would have those payments made every month or every year, and they are not using the equipment. That's not very.
But the question is then, you as senators, how has this really flown off your radar? That you've not been able to question why this particular sum was raised from 90 million shillings to 200 million shillings for a long protracted time, right? These are answers we seek from you. We want to take a short break, but when we circle back, of course, we hear from Kongo Mogeni why the senators not really, of course, up to scratch with this particular development. Why was that particular sum of money raised from 90 million shillings to 200 million shillings that the counties are paying, of course, to the national government? That is a question we need to probe. So don't go away. This continues on the other side of the break.
Kuishi hii life ya mwanaume kamili ni lazima ujue status yako ya HIV. Keep zile vitu na like zikiwa sawa. Kuwa mwanaume kamili. Jua hali yako ya HIV leo. Sasa unaweza kujipima HIV kwenye usiri wa nyumba yako.
we are looking at the 15 billion shillings Afya House scandal, where the Health Ministry is under, of course, the Health Ministry under CS Cecily Kariuki is once again on the spot of a substantial variation in the controversial medical equipment leasing scheme that will cost the taxpayer an extra 15 billion shillings. And we are getting, of course, first-hand information from the governor himself of Kisumu, who maybe will speak for the counties that this is truly happening. But what we're failing to understand is why has the Senate failed to raise this particular question of the amount that is being raised from 90 million shillings to 200 million shillings by the national government. Is there any rhyme or reason for this? And we've promised we'll circle back with you, Senator Kongo Mogani. Why have you been mealy-mouthed about this particular?
No. I think, Debarl, first I had to, state without any fear of contradiction that this is one of the issues that the Senate has flagged. And this is one of, I think, those issues where we have more questions than answers as the Senate.
What issues? Is it that the unused medical equipment or the monies as well? So we are speaking on two different issues here.
Let me even speak for, let me go down to my county. We went with the Parliamentary Committee on Budget to the county of Nyamira, and we visited the county hospital, referral hospital. And we tried to ask, the county government medical staff to tell us something about these equipment. Because the medics there were telling us normally the lifespan of medical equipment, and maybe Professor here will tell us, is like 4 years or so. But they told us we cannot give you any answer on these equipment. They were just brought by national government and dumped here. How they were procured, what informed the procurement, nobody knows. But the bigger picture is this. When the Senate was enacting the County Allocation Revenue Act, and you can go to the answer, what I'm telling you is something that is factual and is documented. We flagged out this allocation of 9.4 billion, and we said we are approving CARA minus this 9.4 billion shillings. So if somebody is paying out this money or deducting this money from county governments and paying some foreign entity, it is without the blessings and approval of the Senate. Two, this issue is pending before the Health Committee of the Senate. And I'm aware that on 2 occasions, summons have gone out to the Minister for Health to appear before the committee and shed some light. Because how do you just wake up one day and tell the county governments that you have increased the expenses on these equipment by over 200%? And then there are so many questions. I don't know. Governor Anyang' Nyong'o should tell us, if you are leasing this equipment and you are paying this amount for every year, what happens at the end of the lease period? I mean, is there value for money? Could we not have gotten a better deal by purchasing these equipment and not leasing them? And then you try to ask questions. Why was the county government involved in this? Because I've read Article 6 here. It says the governments of the nation and county levels are distinct. And then they will conduct their mutual relationship on the basis of consultation and cooperation. So if you are committing county government to some contract that was signed on their behalf, can that take place without their involvement? Especially when you read Article 2 of the Constitution, which says this Constitution is supreme and binds all persons and all state organs. So really, I think this is something that we should give a name of a scandal. I don't understand how the government could have engaged in this kind of, initially it was involving 38 billion. Now I think it's moved to I don't know how many billions. And you will never see the face of county governments. If you ask a professor here who signed this contract on behalf of Kisumu County, he will not tell us. I was in Nyamira County government doesn't know who signed the contract on its behalf. So what we need to really state here today is that this is a big scandal in the making, and somebody in the Ministry of Health is ripping off county government, and it's a fairly oppressive contract. Debarl, Anyang' Nyong'o never receives this money and then he pays the person who is leasing the equipment to him. this money is deducted at source.
At source, yeah.
The government deducts that money at source before it reaches Governor Anyang' Nyong'o or any other governor for that matter. Now, tell me, if county governments are supposed to have county integrated development plans for 5 years, you are supposed to pass your annual budgets, then isn't that a situation where the role of county governments is being taken over by the national governments without consultation with county governments? I don't know. To me, I think this is something that should attract the interest of Nuruddin Haji. If there is an issue where we need to see him on the media with a statement telling us that he has directed investigations to be undertaken, then it's on this equipment. If he doesn't act, then I think I'll also say he's being a disservice to this country.
All right. Okay, let's hear from Kembe Gitura.
I think I was in Senate when this 38 billion shillings was allocated for the purchase of the equipment. And I personally believe that this was done in good faith. That is the leasing. And if I remember correctly, the reason there was leasing was because it was found that you cannot buy medical equipment, outright. You could if you wanted, but everybody would tell you that the lifespan, like they've said, is very short. It's about 4 years, maybe 5 years. And therefore it needs to keep being, refurbished, changed to be modern. And that's why the leasing was meant to be such that whoever the lessor was, who is leasing it to the government or the county government, would then continue to improve it as time goes on, and the leasehold money being paid for that equipment. So I think it was a good idea, because Debarl, you must accept that that health, although devolved, and I'm one person, and I'll say this on national TV, that I still believe that health should have, the devolvement of health should at the best have been staggered, not done immediately. Because like education, like security, health affects everybody, every Kenyan, every day, 24/7. And this is an area, in my view, that should have been, maybe more care should have been taken, and the devolvement of it could have been staggered, so the counties were ready to take it on as a devolved function. But then it was the way it was done. I'm not surprised that the government of the day in 2017 thought it should be involved to save lives and to help people, because it had its own thinking, the way it wanted to have things done. And today I want to tell you this, Debarl, that the most risky thing in this country of ours is to get sick. Because if you get sick, you know immediately that the bills will start escalating, and within a month you'll be calling Harambee to help you out with your bills. And the idea of having level 5 hospitals in all the counties was so that we could have a filtration system, so that before you come to Kenyatta National, before you get to the level 5 hospital of your own county, you have gone through the clinic, through the dispensary, through the, all the system, and then ending up in Kenyatta or the other level 5 hospitals as the need arose. But today that's not happening. Today that's not happening because this equipment doesn't appear to be working in a lot of counties. The question I would like to pose myself, particularly to a person who is so well versed in these issues, I don't think anybody understands these issues better than Governor Anyang' Nyong'o, who was a minister for health, in the last Kibaki government, a person who was a senator, therefore saw this money the way it was being shared out, a person who is now governor who is consuming, devolution directly for the people of Kisumu. I would like to have what he thinks about it. But I think that we need to continue to improve the health in counties. And I think myself that the national government needs to continue to be involved as much as possible without interfering, because after all, they are serving the same people.
Thank you.
Without appearing to interfere with what the county governments are doing. If there is fraud or there is a scandal in the issue of the leased equipment, then obviously something has to be done. When I read about 15 billion shillings yesterday happening at the Ministry of Health, Afia House, some people call it Mafia House, but Afia House, let these matters be investigated. Let us get to the gist of it, because at the end of it, it is the Kenyan citizen who is suffering because of lack of health. But if the equipment is still in crates in some counties, Debarl, then that begs a bigger question. What is happening at the counties?
Right.
What are the governors and the senators doing together, and what's the Council of Governors doing to say that this equipment should not have been paid for because it has not been found to be useful to the counties where it was supposed to be used?
Professor, we'll come to you just in a moment. Of course, we answered the question of the universal health care. If at all the infrastructure is not also a component of that, then how do we even call it a universal healthcare? Because we always focus on the finances bit, but we hear here and we read the amenities, infrastructure, accessing these particular facilities is a problem. How also is that adding to maybe the tripping wire of us achieving and realizing universal healthcare? But we want just to also prime our views this morning on the current state of play as far as the Michuki rules is concerned. Just briefly, then we continue with the conversation and we hear from Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. We head over now to Buruburu to just get a reality on the ground where we have Sharon Beranga, who's standing by to give us a snippet of what is happening on the ground. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning, Debarl. It is not such a good morning for a number of people who rely on matatus, or what we call public service vehicles, for their day-to-day movement around the city. Right now, currently, I am at Mutindwa stage in Buruburu at an intersection where it is normally used by people from Umoja and Buruburu. And as you can see, we have a number of people stranded on the stage just waiting for public service vehicles if they are going to be lucky, because we have a few of them on the road. Most of the people have withdrawn their matatus on the road, and as a result of that, we have a number of private vehicles right now on the road that has also contributed to the traffic that you can see right now. As I can move from this side of the road, you can see that we have a number of matatus that have been withdrawn from the road. The city hopers, perhaps because they have not yet complied with the traffic regulations. And yesterday we noticed a number of vehicles in some of the garages trying to, rush and comply with the traffic regulations ahead of today, which they had been given by the government as the deadline to comply with all these traffic rules, just as a way to try and restore sanity on the roads, and as well as just reduce the number of accidents that we've been witnessing. But as of now, we still have people, some opting to use motorcycles. Again, it is a risky affair, it's a dicey affair because they are not allowed within the CBD, but we still have people who are risking to use the motorcycles because it's the only option that they have. That is not unless they are, they book for taxis. Back to you, Debarl.
Right. Many thanks indeed, Sharon Beranga there, giving us a current state of play on what is happening as far as traffic is concerned, and that enforcement of Michuki rules, the crackdown, where police officers, they're coming down now hard on matatus who are not really trying to comply with the Michuki rules as well. Of course, we shall be keeping you apprised of what is happening on the ground as well. That is from Mutindwa right now. You can see many of them are stranded this morning. We can't see as many matatus as before. Many of them have pulled out, protesting these particular rules as well. Of course, that is the situation on the ground. If you may remember, hacking back to some years back, yes, many of them, even the citizens, they actually bore the brunt of this, and they said, now we're going to stick with Michuki on this until we see a streamlining of this sector as well. That is the situation on the ground. If you've not, of course, stepped out of the house yet, just be aware of that you might be delayed because of the lack of matatus this morning, and many of them, I'm given to understand as well, they've hiked their prices, so you might want also to carry extra cash just in case. We continue with the conversation, and of course, Professor, we were back on that particular issue of the universal healthcare, because most of the times we say, yes, we'll give you the cards, everyone will have the NHIF card, but accessing the facility, that is a different kettle of fish altogether. The infrastructure, the amenities, and this is well displayed here with these particular stories, that if we have these facilities on the ground, they don't even have the amenities. Pogesho is saying some of them are actually right now constructing, or the construction is still ongoing, to where they can actually store these facilities. And if we do have these facilities, we don't have the requisite experience, with the personnel to actually, man these particular facilities.
Well, I think let me maybe say the following. I think the experience differs from county to county. There are certain counties where when this equipment arrives, the right equipment arrives at the right time. So they installed it and they're using them, and they had the personnel. I would think that if you go to a hospital like Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, which is perhaps now one of the best referral hospitals in the country, they were quite prepared, I think, to consume this equipment. But there are other facilities where definitely people are not ready for this equipment. That's true. But that does not alter the fact that this kind of equipment, under the right kind of arrangement, would really help the health system in the country. Mm-hmm. So what could have gone wrong at the beginning was the conception of the whole thing, the idea that you must tender or buy something for a felt need that has not been properly planned or investigated for. And secondly, it happened at a time when the health system was changing from a highly central one to a devolved system. Mm. I happen to believe that devolving services like health and education is what is proper in modern times, because you need those who govern to run such facilities which are very close to people or are responsible. For example, if a door breaks down in a sub-county hospital and you cannot repair it until you call Afya House, mm-hmm. This produces a lot of delay. But if you can pick up a phone and call the county government, the response is much faster, isn't it? So I think devolution makes a lot of sense in the health sector. But let me say the following, that I'll give you an example. When I was Minister for Medical Services, we worked on a cabinet memo, I was just telling Kembi Victoria here, of increasing the number of referral facilities in the country. And we settled at 22 referral facilities after very careful research, because we thought that the referral facilities we had, which were 10 then, were inadequate. And this cabinet memo was actually passed by the cabinet, but when it went to the committee for the implementation of the constitution, they called me and said, look, your memo is outdated because health is going to be devolved and you can't now establish referral facilities without consulting the incoming government. So we are sorry, this cannot go on. And I remember Catherine Moma, who was a member of the committee for the implementation of the constitution, coming to my office and really explaining in detail why this was. And I understood and I said, well, I'm sorry, I did really good work, but due to devolution, this cannot work. I think this is the kind of thing which should have happened to the buying of this equipment, that if it was bought at that time between 2010 and 2013, mm-hmm. as devolution was coming in, they should have waited in the national government until the county government came in to deal with it. But finally, look, I agree with Senator Mutula Kilonzo that what the Senate really needs is to establish a select committee which would conduct a hearing on this and gather information from both government, even call these fellows from Netherlands and from China and the US and India and Italy who sold this equipment. Mm-hmm. What kind of contract do they have? It's a select committee like the one we did with Kenya Airways, which really helped Kenya Airways. You see, Kenya Airways has benefited from our work. Yes. I think in order to go deep into this, I would plead with the Senate to respond to Senator Mutula Kilonzo's plea so that we have a select committee deal with it. But finally, just to say something regarding what my friend Kembi said. Look, in a leasing agreement, there are two things. One, there must be laid down principles of the leasing. What are you leasing? On what terms? For how long? At the end, like Metamogeni said, when the equipment, when it comes to an end, the lease period, what do you do with the equipment? Mm. Most companies say at the end of the period, we'll take back the equipment and we can go and recondition it. And now these are new to somebody else, because the equipment is not all wrong, but there are certain parts which wear down, which you can't keep on replacing. So you need to go back and retool the equipment. I've been to a refurbishing farm in Michigan and see how this happens. And then you can buy equipment which is refurbished much cheaper than new ones. The other thing that must be there is a lease agreement. And the Council of Governors demanded a lease agreement from the national government. What kind of lease agreement? I have never seen it myself. I've never seen it as a governor. So I think there must be, first of all, the principles of the leasing that was established, the lease agreement, and part of that lease agreement should tell us what is to be done with the equipment when the lease period is over.
But you're repeating this money. And
no, I agree. You
but
see, the point
I thought maybe it should have been honest also the government to know for how long will I be remitting this particular money.
That's what I'm talking about. It must be in a lease agreement. But the point is, if also the money you are paying for leasing is more than what you'd pay if you bought the equipment yourself,
yes,
then the leasing doesn't make sense.
So this make or lease decision, how was it arrived at in the first place?
This is what I'm saying. This is why Mutula Kilonzo's Juniors Committee, Select Committee is important, because you delve into this. Because look as if there's been a dialogue of the deaf here. No, the Council of Governors says we want this, the national government, no, it's already done.
Okay.
So I think there needs to be a Select Committee to go deep into this thing.
Let us see from Pogiso, then we...
Yeah, just to add to what Professor is saying, the blanket decision was that you equip 2 hospitals in each county. So you simply just supplied machines to those. And so those who are ready took it up and used it. But there are many counties that did not even have personnel, did not have the places to put the equipment, did not have even the power, some of the right power to even power this equipment. But it has already been decided, Debarl, is that 2 of them would go to a county, Turkana, another to West Pokot, to go to Marakwet. And if they were not ready, the equipment would just sit there. That was the problem. And also, there was no accompaniment as to the equipment of personnel who are qualified. It was, again, a county decision to find people who are qualified. There was no saying that within a certain time you must establish this, and therefore this is the kind of plan for the next 2 years for you to complete the building. Some people have not finished building. What if? So I'm basically saying that the Senate, and I agree now that we should probably support Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Senator from Makueni, to establish a select committee, basically a broad-based committee to bring about the right questions and give Kenyans the answers. Because I think that we should learn from this, what I call scandal, learn from it, because it's already named here as a scandal, 15 billion sharing. Learn from it and not to repeat something like this again. So the counties cannot just be told, you're now receiving next one. Of course, the next one might be other equipment, you know, vehicles, whatever it is. Say now, you must receive this. And that decision was bad, and I think that we should now be careful for this term going forward.
Right. Senator Okongo Mongeni.
Yeah, I think first, of course, I fully agree with Senator Pogisho. But I have a problem with the suggestion by Senator Kembi Gitura that health should not be a devolved function. I think progressive societies all over, the idea is to make healthcare accessible to citizens as much as possible. And you know, based international standards, a response by a hospital to a citizen should be in a minimum of 6 minutes, Professor Jangyo. If you suffer a stroke in Nyamira, the solution should not be to bring you to Nairobi. The solution should be to take you to Nyamira Level 5 Hospital and you receive quality medical care in that facility. In fact, we went to Cuba, and in Cuba now, the community hospitals should be able to attend to that emergency. And that cannot really be done by the national government. What we need to do is really to appreciate that we have 2 levels of government, and we need to empower the county governments, and we should stop this idea of big brother syndrome from the national government. I think health should be devolved functions, and it should be a preserve of county governments. Now, on this issue of equipment, you know, what worries me, Debarl, is, you know, last financial year, the money that was deducted from county governments was 6.1 billion. Now, this financial year, it is 9.4 billion. I don't know what it will be in the next financial year. And this circle, I understand, is supposed to run for, I don't know, 7 years. And these figures keep increasing year in. No, they don't come down. They just go up. They keep going up. So I don't know how this, as a lawyer, and Senator Gitura is a lawyer, I don't know how this lease agreement was worded in such a manner that after every year, you have the lease sum goes up by 200%, 6.1 billion up to 9.4 billion. When the lifespan of the equipment is actually going down, the maintenance costs are going up. I mean, this is something that should worry us as a country. And that's why I began by saying that this contract, right from the beginning, it looks very oppressive. It's oppressive to the county government and it's oppressive to us as the people of Kenya. And I fully agree with Senator Pogisho that there are some things we need to put a stop to. When you take people to court, you want to ensure that some of these offenses are not repeated in the future. And if the government went wrong on this one, we should never give them another opportunity to do the same thing in the same misguided, I'm sorry to use that word, in the same misguided manner again next year. So really, Debarl, my concluding remarks is that I think this is a matter that we should flag. We have flagged it as Senate, but I think we should give it a keener interest. And I agree with the proposal by my good friend, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, that maybe the way to go is to have a select committee of the Senate to look into the details of this issue and tell the people of Kenya whether there is really value for money on this.
Thank you. Kembe, before we come to you, and of course we need to question the sort of contractual agreements that we enter as government with maybe government to government that is not really, also full disclosure to the public. Like what we enter, the contractual agreement that we enter with Chinese, we just hear, yes, we are in this agreement, but we don't know the components, the items, or the articles of this particular contractual agreement, only to realize later that, yes, this was not really a wise decision. Buy or release. But let's just read some of the reactions that we have also from social media. We have Dr. Kakai Kalubusia, of course, from Egerton University, saying this medical equipment scandal is also squarely the failure of the county government. They ought to have started by building capacity on specialized human personnel to operate the equipment. And still also on him, he says that our CT scan and MRI machines are extremely important equipment, MRI, but they just uninstalled in most county referral hospitals. The county government have completely refused to further specialized trainings. We can't blame national governments. It's well covered in this agreement. Also, we have Jacob saying the Afya House scandal from what go was big. Jubilee caught a skunk, let them carry it. The previous county bosses like Azat Ruto, the governor, opposed it, for he knew it was a tall order. Let's just hear from Kembe. Those are reactions from social media as well.
Very important reactions, if you ask me. And I think that's the point that I was trying to make. Governors signed, if I remember correctly, it was only Governor Isaac Ruto of Bomet who withheld his hand for a very long time, but he finally signed and agreed and accepted this equipment. He's the only one I remember. I don't remember anybody else. And I would like to correct a misconception here. I did not say that health should not be devolved. That's not what I said. I said maybe it should not have been done as suddenly as it was done. Maybe it should have been staggered to make the county governments ready for it. You don't win, even animals don't win their young ones immediately they are born.
Yes.
They give them time to know what is grass and how to eat grass. These are nature things. And the point I was making is that Senator Pogisho has told us that in West Pokot, for instance, there are no buildings yet for some of these equipment. The question is, in the last 5 years, what has the West Pokot government done towards getting their priorities right so they can have these buildings ready so they can put the equipment, whether it is this or future equipment. Think about a dialysis machine, for instance. I've seen it in some level 5 hospitals, even level 4 hospitals. And if you have 5 dialysis machines in Murang'a County, which is only a level 4 hospital, the number of patients whose lives are saved and whose money is saved because they don't have to come to Nairobi for dialysis is tremendous. And this, in my view, is the way to go. It's not a question of a big brother syndrome.
Yes.
It's a question of what needs to be done now and by who. Why does a patient have to come from Murang'a, for instance, for a matter that can be treated in Murang'a if the priorities had been taken correctly and the right equipment was put in the right place? Because in 5 years, by now, if the county governments do not know the priorities, the diseases that afflict us in Murang'a are not necessarily the same diseases that afflict people in Kisumu. And therefore, whoever is the CEC in charge of health should be able to then to know what are the priorities for my county. What of this equipment am I supposed to install first before I go to the next one? I do not agree with Senator Morgan, who is a senior lawyer, saying that they don't know what the lists talk about. Article 35 of the Constitution gives right to information. Let him show it, and by the way, not even to an institution like Senate. It says that every citizen has a right to access to information held by the state. Therefore, if I as a private citizen today wanted to know what is in the lease agreement, all I need to do is ask for it at Article 35 of the Constitution. Now the Senate, for Senate to say it doesn't know what is in this lease agreement is taking it too far, because they just need to demand to see, the Health Committee only needs to demand to see the lease agreement, and there are more lawyers than ever before in the Senate. Let them go through it, clause by clause. Let them tell us as a people what is wrong with that agreement. I still insist, Debarl, that some counties were not ready for total devolution of health. And that is why, even today, you find that they are not ready. And the question that should be asked to them is this: what have they done? What lessons have they learned in the last 5 years to make them ready for health to be devolved? Because finally it has to be devolved. And finally, it should be easier for somebody to go to Nyamira, like Omogoni has said so correctly, to go there through the clinics before even he gets to the level 5 hospital. Yes. Before then he is referred to Kenyatta or to Moi referral hospital in Eldoret, so that they're able then to get what they need to get. My position is where I started, that health is so important, maybe more important than anything else, that we cannot afford to take it for granted. Universal health care, NHIF for instance, properly done, and I think they are doing a tremendous job currently, and I think every governor should see to it that they are, because the governors should also help the national government. They say they are distinct governments. They are actually not distinct. They are serving the same people. And it's up to a governor to make sure that in the county, everybody has universal health. Thank you. Because that 130,000 shillings, which is the minimum that NHIF gives, and people do not seem to know that NHIF also has what they call premium, policies also, where they can cover you up to 7.5 million shillings, maybe 10 million shillings, depending on the cover that you take. I think universal health, in my opinion, is one of the most urgent things to think about, because we cannot afford. I'm not in Parliament now, but my colleagues here are in Parliament and in county government, and every Saturday, every Friday, you are invited to a harambe, not because somebody has died, but because somebody is going to India for a kidney transplant, or to another place for this cancer or the other thing. Thank you. This, in my view, is the priority we must take. And instead of arguing about what equipment should be where, we should be finding what priorities we have, so that the people can benefit from the devolved health services, which I still maintain. Maybe before we come to you, Governor, we should just get a rejoinder from the senators, because he says that you cannot trot us with that excuse that, yes, you're not privy to this particular lease agreement, Senator Okongo and Senator Pogisio as well. While we know, as he's actually read from the Constitution, you have that particular provision from the Constitution that it is your right to get this information. And of course, even now, we have the enactment of the Access to Information Act, right, that is in force right now. So it will be so unfortunate of you to tell us that you cannot actually get the contractual agreement of these leases, Pogisio.
But I don't think any one of us has said it's impossible to get. I think that's really pushing it too far. None of us has said it is. Even you in the media, you can get it, and that's not the point. The point, in my view, is let's look at this standardized equipment. One size fits all. All counties get two hospitals equipped the same way. Standardized equipment, but not standardized staff, not standardized funding for health. I mean, look here, Debarl. We must be realistic in Kenya that people who come from hitherto developed counties like Murang'a and Kisumu and other places do not understand the uniqueness of places which hitherto have been marginalized. The northern frontier counties, for example. You tell me which specialist would like to go and work there. They don't have trained personnel from their own counties. They have never had, for example, doctors in some of these counties trained within their own counties, doctors and specialized doctors, because that requires master's degree and so on. This is not a place where you just say, let's have the equipment there because you will need it, and then the equipment there sits. We still have to refer people out of West Pokot for these advanced treatments in Eldoret, because that's where actually the machines fit. And so I'm just saying, basically, let's understand that there might be a specialist here who may want to work. He will choose to work in Muranga. He will choose to work in Kisumu. He will choose to work in Nairobi. He will not want to go to Garissa. He will not want to go to Mandera. He will not go to Turkana, West Pokot. And so all these things, power has just entered some of these counties for the first time. And it's mostly single faces. And when by the time they're through with what you call a three-phase, that is another thing altogether. They didn't have water. You take that for granted in the hospitals. And so I'm just saying, basically, what we have not taken into consideration is, if you standardize equipment, you must standardize the funding for that particular sector. So that everybody then has a chance to train doctors, has a chance to specialize, has a chance to bring power quickly, and things like that. But it wasn't done. And so you can see why some places are still behind in equipment installation. So let us not, in fact, on the issue of information, for example, access to information, that is true. I mean, we should not be talking about an ability to get information in this modern age, because we can't get that information. And I'm sure when we do a select committee, the first basis of it is to get those lease agreements and go through them and comb through them, so that we can then have the right kind of questions to take to the field. And so I'm asking that we start thinking about health and the devolution of health as a specialized way of equalizing and equalization of all health facilities, including being able to afford trained personnel specialists in places which are hitherto, that means you have to pay them more. You have to find a place where they can stay with comfort, take their children to school. It's a bit difficult, and I think that's where now the imbalance comes in. And so when you tell me that, okay, if you tell me the West Pokot, the priority is to build a facility to house these things, and you know there are other priorities which you really cannot. For example, health. Funding for health goes mostly to paying personnel, more than even anything else. And so in those counties where their funds are lower than other counties, you have to understand that they will not be able to keep up with the speed.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okongo Mogeni, we'll come to you.
Of course, you know, Debarl, I want to tell you one thing. Anytime you see that the government wants to hold some information unto itself, that's a red flag. That should raise suspicion. Senator, my good friend Senator Kembi Gitura here, served in the last Senate. This issue was live in that Senate. But if you ask him, and even Professor Nyang, I doubt whether any of them has a copy of that lease agreement. And you know, everything is about process, Debarl. If you want to lease equipment for Turkana county government, I think the most decent thing to do is to share information and have full disclosure with this county government and tell them that we want to enter into a partnership or into a contract with this entity to cost you this much, and these are the equipment we want to give you. Are you ready? Now, what misuse of public funds can we talk of other than in a situation where you pay somebody money, some foreign entity, they're enjoying the money, but the equipment that was meant to be beneficial to us as a country is lying somewhere, simply because this is a contract that was entered by a government without consultation. And I think this new consultation is about consultations, about public participation. You should ensure first, before you bring the equipment, you should first of all do due diligence and ask, will this equipment be of value to this county government? Will I bring that equipment and make it useful to the people who reside in that county government? You know, it's like buying a bus, using a loan from a bank, and you come and park it somewhere, and you continue paying the person who has given you the bus, and you're not using it. Isn't that misuse of public funds? Those are the questions we are asking. I mean, you cannot just look at the interest of the person who is applying and not the user. It should be of value to us. But if you bring an equipment like what we are hearing of Turkana, and you leave it there for 4 years, now the lease period is maybe 7 years, and you're going to pay that provider for the full lease period without making use of that equipment. Is that good use of, I mean, is that value for our money, our hard-earned taxpayers' money? Those are the questions we are raising. And I think let's agree that this thing was not done properly. We cannot have excuses on that. The process was not done properly, and I think that's where we should ask questions from government.
Right. I'd like to give some information here.
Please.
I think let's make a distinction between the crisis about this equipment and what is going on in the health sector in devolved units. I think those two issues must be distinguished. I know for certain that almost in every county, the sector that most county government give most attention is health. Health takes the attention on most county government because one, health is very important. Two, it is the biggest human resources in every county is in health. And so you are paying for a huge, quite a substantial part of human resources in your county from your budget in health. So you have to pay attention to it. Secondly, the problem facing health, if you leave alone this equipment business, is both in terms of training of human resources at all levels and equipping health facilities from the most basic health facility, the dispensary, to the level 5 hospital. Now, one of the things we have experienced in this universal healthcare, particularly those counties which were picked up as pilot, is that in order to have universal healthcare, you must fulfill we must deal with two issues. One, equipment in facilities. Two, human resources. And the equipment you need in a dispensary is not the same equipment you need in a sub-county hospital. The kind of human resources you need at a sub-county hospital are different from those. So the training of these people, the amount of money you are going to spend, the time you need differs from one level to the other. Now, most counties found that when the county governments, when the Debarl government started, that they had problems at almost every level, and those problems persist. If you look today, for example, in the Business Daily, there's a column there, poor funding puts Mathari Hospital on sick bed. Medics at Mathari Hospital are overworked, underpaid, and ill-equipped. The situation is worsening with every financial year as funding per patient continues to fall below optimal level. That is Mathari, a referral facility that has been there for years, and it has those problems. What about in counties? So the health sector, I think, that's why we are introducing universal healthcare. And one of the things we realized in our discussion also with the ministry, that we cannot assume that universal healthcare is going to succeed unless we deal with two gaps in county government. The gap in human resources, and the gap in equipment. And in Kisumu County, for example, we did an analysis and found what the gaps were. Now, if we know those gaps, and then somebody from outside tells you, now, your gap is this equipment, and lands those equipment there, and you say, no, we have much more other basic gaps we need to fit before you go there. I think this is the most important thing, that this equipment was rammed in counties before the gap analysis was done by the national government. I see exactly what kind of gaps you needed to fill in counties to prepare them for devolution. True. I think this is a basic thing. We're not saying that, we're only saying that, look, sorry, this thing was done, but it was done in a process that was not really very useful to devolution at that point in time. We're not saying the equipment is completely nonsensical, no. For example, if you travel towards Aga Khan Hospital on Limuru Road, is it Limuru? Okay, Limuru Road. There's a big sign there, PET scan has just arrived at Aga Khan. Now I remember that if you have PET scan, you must have people who are going to PET scan. Why did Aga Khan also delay bringing in PET scan up to today? Because they are preparing. Give you another example. When I was Minister for Medical Services, I went to Nairobi Hospital. We went with the president to open the new oncology and cardiac center there. And after we had opened it, things were over. I sat down with the CEO of Nairobi Hospital. What was his name again then? Mailu. And
Cleopas Mailu.
Yeah, Cleopas tell me, this is fantastic. This cardiac, we need an oncology center in this city. I'm glad you've done this. Cleopas told me, Mr. Minister, just a minute. Yes, what you have seen is very good, but I have problems. I say, what problems do you have? I needed to import oncology nurses from South Africa. I needed to import medical physicists from South Africa. I needed to import oncologists themselves from South Africa. I don't have enough here. And I'm paying through my nose for these medical physicists and nurses. I'm paying through my nose. So we really have to train our people in very quick time to cut down on these costs. So I'm saying that, look, please let us approach the health sector very rationally, and let us critique this equipment, not because we are rejecting them, but just saying, if indeed we are paying more for leasing over the next 7 years, what's the logic of leasing this equipment when we could have bought it at the time we need it?
That's the question.
That's the thing.
That's the question. All right, we actually supposed to be winding up right now, and briefly, I would love us to comment, because I think the December the 1st, the President will be launching the universal healthcare, the pilot programs. That will also coincide with the World AIDS Day. But in terms of realizing universal healthcare, because as I've mentioned, we are not focusing on the other component of the universal healthcare. The much focus has been on the financing bit of it with the NHIF card, but accessibility still remains to be a problem as it is. And you've also given out some of tickling problems, like now human resource and of course also the equipment and the quality of healthcare. It's not just about having the NHIF, but do I have a quality healthcare? Can I access the premise? Accessibility also has to be another niggling worry as well. So as we're winding up, how will also this, in light of what is coming up now with the facilities that are not being used, they're still actually, still even unpacked, how will it sort of affect the realization of universal healthcare? Briefly, as we're winding up.
First of all, I don't think anybody can put it half as well as Professor Nyang' Nyong'o has done. And I think it brings out the fact that we are not actually disagreeing. We are saying very much the same thing, but differently. I think that's the point that should come out here. Dr. Kakai, who tweeted, talked about capacity building. And he challenged the county government on the issue of capacity building, so that we cannot sit here 5 years later and we are saying there's still no capacity. They should be able to tell us how far have they gone with this capacity. The issue of that we are still preparing, as Professor Nyang' Nyong'o has said, tells you we are not ready. And that is the point of departure. That's the point that I was trying to make when I said it's not that I'm saying the health should not be devolved, but we must realize that the needs are different. Like I said, what afflicts us is different. And the way Senator Pogisho put it is very good, that the needs of West Pokot are not the same as the needs for Kisumu. And that is why he made the point that, and I support that 100%,
Thank you.
that it cannot be one fits all, because if you dump the machines in West Pokot for things that they're not ready for, then that's a waste.
Thank you.
And I think that is what I meant when I said that we may not have been ready for devolved health, because we need to build capacity so that West Pokot is at par in terms of capacity, and then it can say, this is the equipment that we need. Does it come from the national government or from the county government?
Thank you.
That's a different
question.
Thank
you very much. Right, let's hear from Pogisho. Briefly, your headline thoughts, 30 seconds.
Yes, but I think that the proposal to have a select committee to look at this afresh must now begin to expand the need of standardizing healthcare in the counties to include making sure that the specialists are also accompanying this equipment. That means if the government has decided that 2 hospitals must be equipped, they must also say that in each county we are going to find this kind of specialists to deal with those equipment, be able to then to expand. But that's a standard, you see, so that you don't leave it to the counties to try and catch up. And my problem is the counties trying to catch up with the situation which is already there. In fact, it's going to disadvantage a number of them. So that's one. Number two. Thank you. But I think just want to say that probing the corruption of all these things that we are going to go into is very important. Let's find out who are these people who are hiding even that information that we need to have.
Thank you. Okongo Mogeni, 30 seconds.
I think my brief is, let's audit the process that was followed in procuring this equipment. That's very key. And fully to agree with the Prof that universal health care is not just about county referral hospitals. We need to strengthen our community health centers, our dispensaries, ensure that county governments have enough response equipment like ambulances. That's how we attain universal health care. But I really hope that Matiang'i and Macharia will fully implement this reforms in the matatu
Professor, 30 seconds.
We will never be completely ready. We must be progressively ready. That means that the old English saying necessity is the mother of invention is very true. Universal healthcare is a necessity. Nay, it is vital. It is important for all of us. We have to implement it. So even if we don't have adequate human resources, we don't have adequate equipment, we have to implement it. We shall invent as we go on.
Thank you very much, your panelists. Anyang' Nyong'o, who's the governor of Kisumu, thank you for coming through. Also, Ambassador Kikembe Gitura, who's a former senator of Murang'a, thank you for coming through as well. Okongo Mogini, we thank you as well for your contribution this morning. And also, Senator Samuel Pugisu from West Pokot, thank you for coming through this morning. I'll be remiss if I don't read one or two tweets as we're winding up. Mishuki rules, of course, we know the crackdown is on. And John Gidange is saying Mishuki rules were gradually ignored because most Kenyans love to hate law and order. There are many transport business people and others here who benefit financially from impunity, anarchy, and uncensored living. Also, we have Obunga Apamo saying we can't justify borrowing when we can't justify our spending. Whoever is responsible for the Afya House scandal should be brought to book. And lastly, Abdallah Mdambo saying when Afya House scandal was exposed, many people in government became unreasonably defensive. Now we know why doctors can't be paid. Those are your sentiments there on social media. Thank you very much for your valid company. You've been watching This Is a Point, and of course, we want to thank our panelists for that cogent discussion as well, and your valid contribution as well. Thank you. My name is Debarl Inea. Living with Us is up next.